Hello and welcome to the Social Recruiting Show. I'm Katrina Collier. I speak, train and write about the use of social media for recruitment. And of course, I'm joined by Audra Knight, who is a fantastic recruitment marketing specialist, employer branding nerd. What am I calling you this week? I'm not sure, but she's fabulous either way. Today we have Mark Lundgren. I cannot say your name. I've tried. Joining us. He's a talent sourcer and he's going to talk about recruiting in 8 different countries over 12 years and what's that's taught him. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, so the English version is Lundgren.
Lundgren.
The English version would be Lundgren.
I'm Australian, so what's the Australian version? Got it wrong.
I don't know. I got away with it. Yeah, I had two Australian colleagues in Denmark at one point, and yeah, it was some interesting conversations.
It's hard because our vowels are quite flat, so it's actually really hard. The French is really hard for us.
Yeah, it fits with my Danish dialect, but you wouldn't understand anything of that. Right? Yeah.
No.
We have a tendency of eating half the words, so yeah. My wife,
5 languages?
No, I speak 3, so yeah. I've had more, but mixing them up, so I stick with 3.
English, obviously.
English is 3rd, German 2nd, Danish 1st. So yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Wow, yeah. So Mark, could you've worked for some really impressive companies, Amazon, Ericsson, Microsoft. Can you give us like a little bit of background about your work history?
Sure. I left Denmark when I was 25. I worked for a student organization for 4 years called ISIC. So they do graduate, soon-to-be graduate traineeship placements around the world. So yeah, I started doing that kind of a sales/recruitment role locally. Went national, international, ended up in Germany, and just figured out I didn't want to go back home again. Got a job in Ireland of all places. Worked for a small recruitment company there, selling people into Scandinavia. So that was, going across to Ireland, but spending every second week. And
you just wanted more rain?
Yeah, just, ending up flying to Iceland every second week and spending 3 days there, 2 days in Norway, and then back Friday again. So, that was an interesting couple of years. At some point, that's too much. Traveling is all nice, but when you're doing it alone, it can be a bit tedious. It's only that many hotels you can see again and again. So I went in. I went to a more desk-based role. Joined at Deco. Got on the other side. Kind of got from I can sell it, but they can't always deliver it. Let's see if we can. I want to learn the other side. So went agency. Got the good old-fashioned agency treatment.
When were you at Deco?
That would have been 2007, I believe.
So before they bought Spring. I left just before they bought Spring.
Yeah, that would have been before. I
left Spring just before they bought. I
was high street brand for about 6 months before they. Yeah. So.
Like temps.
No, I did. So I did high street. My wife worked for Deco actually as well. I met my wife in the first company we worked in Ireland. And then we both joined the Deco, and she did the temps, like proper industrial temps, 120 people out per week, and trying to get a margin of 30% kind of thing. And I did the perm on the technical side, but I couldn't do IT because that was computer people. But, good old-fashioned training, which from a sales point of view was quite easy because it was like you need to spec the candidates. This many calls so that you can get this many jobs and this many interviews so you can make a placement a week or two, and just scroll that in. So I did that for 6 months. At some point they were like, okay, technical without doing IT doesn't really work. So they asked me to go on site. One of the on sites they had in Ireland, and that was Ericsson. So that was an interesting, very interesting change.
This is going to sound like a really naive question. Do they still exist?
They do. So.
Oh wow! I was just thinking of my phone with the stubby aerial.
Exactly.
I'm that old.
You had that from Canada, which was my phone at that point as well.
Yeah.
You had that from Canada. Cool. Like, oh yeah, Ericsson. But it's like that was the handset part, a bit like Nokia. Yeah. Nokia got bought by Microsoft, but they still exist because. So about 80% of the backbone of the phone networks is Ericsson, and then the rest of it is kind of, Nokia, Siemens. Nokia now bought Alcatel, which was the other big player, and then you have a couple of Chinese players coming in and kind of building what was GSM back then, and we were talking 3G and IPTV and recruiting people that was going to do games on phones that was still in one color. That was interesting. And in doing that, sitting in Ireland and recruiting people to basically go back to Africa and the Middle East to do rollout projects for big telecom projects.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Sorry, I'm turning off my email, which just pinged.
Yes.
Speaking of, technology. I know. Bless. It's my client who's just started a new company, actually. She's just panicking. I'll just have to wait a little bit. Bless her. It's cute. She's been out of recruitment for a bit, so she's just started back and she's sourcing technical people. So
and then
this would be a perfect blab for her.
Yes.
Bless her. So, what have you found the most challenging then? I mean, God, I could tell you a lot about moving from Australia to London and how culturally different that is, and we speak the same language. But what's it like with the different languages and the sending people to Africa and all sorts? I mean,
languages is one thing. So specifically with Ericsson, it was like we ended up hiring people who had done it in those countries before, but that doesn't necessarily, especially rolling out a big mobile phone network in Burkina Faso or Nigeria and things like that takes a certain kind of person, especially project managers and engineers, and it tended to be people who we send out there 9 months of the year. They're not going to come back in the weekend. And just the challenges logistically of doing things like that. So it was a certain type of person you were looking for. And that was generally people who'd done it for years. So I recruited an Australian guy. I recruited a Swedish guy who actually was in Asia at that point. South American, North American, they worked for different companies doing similar things. And on the engineering part, it ended up like GSM and mobile phone engineering points. It ended up, people who I couldn't really hire the people who were already working for us in other countries. So it's about looking at who else has it. That was normally with customers around the world. So Pakistan, India, Australia, South America. I didn't have any limits for where I could actually find people for Ericsson, because they knew that we're going to give them a local contract. We're going to relocate their family to lovely Dublin, and then we're going to send them to the Middle East for 9 months of the year. So it didn't really matter where they came from.
Let's put you in the rain, and then let's put you in the stinking heat where you can't even go outside.
Let's leave the wife and kids in Dublin and send you to South Africa for 9 months. Where
you can be in the sun and surf. So dangerous, though.
So that it's an interesting job, and you kind of get the fringes of technical, because I was very technical people at the same time on the professional services side in terms of consultants. Ericsson had a business consultant unit that basically did management consulting without necessarily thinking telecom, but their customers were telecom. So we were recruiting them as well, but that was, there wasn't technical people. We needed the same kind of people that McKinsey and Deloitte would be looking for, but with a telecom skew. I'm kind of looking at, at that point, it was all about how can we make money out of people who will no longer be making many calls, because everything was about texting. Data was starting. Wi-Fi was something they talked about as being maybe the future.
And when was this? What year?
There was still 2007, 2008.
It's amazing how it's come on, isn't it?
I remember talking to an engineer in Spain from Motorola, and we were trying to get them, to look at. He was working on IPTV, which was the big thing there, and he said, "Look, Motorola is closing down that unit altogether. We're focusing 100% on LTE." And we're like, LTE, but it was really about what's going to be the future. And now that's just we're talking 5G and Wi-Fi networks everywhere, and I was like, it was interesting to be there at that time.
Well, I mean, I've been in offices where the Wi-Fi has been so crap that I've hotspotted off the 4G and delivered training all day seamlessly. And then even yesterday, back to Australia with my sister, FaceTime video, no problems whatsoever. And you just go, and it was free for an hour and a half chat, and you're just going, we used to pay through the nose to have a crappy phone call, and you just.
No, we're the same. I mean, we have family. We have family all over the world. My brother-in-law is in LA. We have family in Israel. We got family both in Denmark and in Poland. So Skype and FaceTime, and my mom, thank God, has finally gotten an iPhone. So she because Skype never really worked for her. So
how old is your mom?
She turned 62 years ago. So it's not even the age. It was just
resistance.
Well, she's not on Facebook. Which sometimes can be a blessing. But
when the drunken
it's just like technically, it's like, you know, she enjoys her life, and anything kind of IT is something you normally did for work. So yeah, I have a young daughter, 1.5 years, and she's I want to see her, and I was like, well, kind of hard when we live in different countries unless you do something about it.
Yeah. So I was saying to you before we came live that I was reading your boss's blog.
Yeah.
And he was talking about sources and recruiters. And we have this conversation all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so I want your definition, your personal, and then we can have the official.
So definition. I don't know whether I have a personal. So like I got interest again, like when I went from sales to recruiting because I could sell it. They couldn't find the people for it. So I said, I want to do the recruiting part. So I'd done the 360 recruitment for most of my career. But then like 4 or 5 years ago, it was the same kind of thing. It's like, you know, post and pray doesn't work. And specifically looking for people who are very niche, which everybody is. And at the end of the day, no matter what role it is, you're always looking for something specific. And a lot of time you end up settling rather than finding it. So I got really interested in that whole sourcing piece. I'd been following the likes of Jim, Shelley for years, you know, looking at Jim and Shelley did at Microsoft way back when the big sourcing team was there, and they just kind of looking into that, looking at Maureen with phone sourcing and just keeping up to date on ERE, source everything. Maureen. I love Maureen as well. I mean, it's
going to be such a swing back. I think it'll now be, I'll be teaching, this is how you go find them, and Maureen will be teaching, and this is how you use the phone to use all the stuff that we found in a conversation.
I was buying her TechTrack cheat sheets 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, at the end of the day, it's things like coming from sales, and like way back when I started in telesales. Yeah. So, you know, if you're not confident, you have enough information. It's all about having kind of call sheets. If you don't quite know if you're doing it right, it's about, all right, if I have a process in front of me, it's going to be okay. It's just about, it's going to be a matter of numbers. And yeah, she's really more and more saying that. Like I had a boss a couple of years ago where we kind of figured out that was his magical interview question. What would you do if you can't, you know, if these people aren't replying to your emails and things like that? And as long as you said, pick up the phone and call them, you were going to get hired.
I'd do that anyway. I never understand how calling someone about a job is scary.
You would be amazed.
Calling into HR to get the job in the first place as an agency. Now that's scary because people are rude.
Well,
calling a person going, hi, Audra, I've got a job for you. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what we do. At the end of the day, we want to talk to people and get them, whether it's I have a job for you or a lot of what we do is about I might have. Yeah. I mean, so for us, it's like the reason why Microsoft has such a big sourcing team as well is like we've slightly shifted the model in terms of, so what recruitment, both agency and in-house for the most part is like we have a role we need to fill. Let's find the candidates who are on the market. Because we can talk passive candidates from now until kingdom come. What we end up hiring most of the time are not passive. They might not have actively reached out to you, but you call them and, well, most of the time we say, I have a job, you want it, yes, no. So we switched around and we're saying, we're still, I mean, a lot of what we do is still that. We have a role, we need to fill it, preferably within the next month, depending on the country that's possible, to really switching around and saying, well, we're specializing in what we look for. If I talk to a salesperson who's interesting for us, but their financial year doesn't end until the end of the year, and they have a good sales pipeline, it would be ludicrous for them to leave now. And what normally would happen was like, okay, well, thank you very much. Let's talk again in 6 months, and that won't happen. What we do is we'll have the conversation we would have had anyway. It's like, okay, what kind of money do I have to offer to make it interesting for you? And most importantly, find those hot buttons. What is it? What's going to make you move? In your next role, what do I have to be able to offer you? And that's not money most of the time. For this to be interesting, is that another opportunity? Is that a slightly different market? Is it an international market? And find out what are those hot buttons. Sometimes it's something about, my office is an hour away. If I could work from home 3 days a week, things like that, and whatever I can find out. And that's what we do.
So how do you work out to keep in touch with them?
So
I mean, those
yeah. So for
that's
us,
where so many drop off, don't they?
It is, and we still own them. It's what happens a lot of the time is like, it goes from a sourcer and then get handed to a recruiter who doesn't have the same kind of ownership of saying this is a good candidate because they haven't talked to them. So they kind of, our notes, whatever is there is no more than just another page of the CV. So we still own that relationship. I mean, we still own the relationship up until they actually start interviewing actively for a role. But at the same time, just because we don't have an open vacancy doesn't mean we can't talk to them. So a lot of my job is about going around to managers and saying, what are you looking for when you're looking? And that could be in 6 months, that could be in 12 months. Because they're always going to be picky, but they're going to be even more picky when they don't actually have anything to fill. But find out what are those small things that they need and see, okay, if I talk to somebody like that, will you meet with them? And just tell them what we do and what we have. So move away from that kind of interview situation where we run through a CV and more to having a coffee and finding out these are the challenges that our team has. These are the kind of things we're looking at in the next year. Would that be something that could be interesting for that person? And then you end up with a short list of people that you would really like. And we've had successes as well where we didn't have a role. A manager, met somebody and said, I really want to hire this person. Can we find a headcount somewhere else and move it in?
That's so cool.
Is it hard to get the hiring manager to meet with them, though, if they don't have an open role? Aren't they like saying, I'm too busy, I can't?
No, in general, they like it. I mean, for most of the hiring managers, their problem has been, I don't have the people to meet. Sales it's slightly different as well. I mean, this is a sales process, which it makes it easier for me to explain it to a manager because it's just saying, you wouldn't expect the customer to just come jumping to you without actually meeting them. It takes a lot for them to get their foot in the door. Nobody expects to get a sale from the first time you meet somebody. It's just getting that and saying, look, these people, these candidates, a lot of the time are completely cold. They know what we do because of who we are, but they don't know specifically what your department does or what that specific. We have a consulting division. The whole service is what we do. It's not, and even if you do know, it's still different. Like, what's the team look like? What's the challenges look like over the next couple of years? Is that something that's interesting? And we then have all the kind of ammunition of what hot buttons do we need to push with this person? Finding out. I'm not going to send them to a manager that I know don't have things like that to offer them. If I know it's a role where they have to be in the office every day, I'm not going to send somebody that I know wants to work from home 3 or 4 days a week.
So you mentioned you do a lot for Germany.
So I do.
So I get a question all the time about, but you can't approach them on, I call it Zing, some call it something else, but they're quite fussy about
if they're American, they call it crossing and
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious whether you come up against that when you approach. I mean, obviously, you approach in German, which is a great start.
Yeah, it is.
Most of the Brits get a bad reaction because they approach in English, but yeah.
You have the thing in Germany where they're like, oh, no, you're not allowed to headhunt in Germany. It's illegal. So German...
Is that true, or is that just...
The definition is if you call somebody at work, it is trespassing.
Wow.
So a couple of the big headhunting companies went to court for that. A couple of companies ended up suing them. What the court decisions were, and this was 5-6 years ago, was it is okay for a recruiter to call in to work to agree on a time to talk and to get a private phone number, which makes things a little, you're not going to call in completely cold and say, I have a job for you. That is something you could end up, which nobody does that anymore anyway, hopefully. Plus, in this social age, you wouldn't expect anybody to call in cold anymore either. You would normally have, I would have tried to email them, tried to do whatever we can and not call them cold. So it's still going to, at least they're going to have, I have a couple of messages in my social media. I have a couple of emails. I know who you are. And then it's
so you do that first, always, before you call?
Yeah, I would always try to get, so it's not a completely cold call.
Right.
Get in, get as much information. If I don't have to, I don't want to have to call, especially in German, I don't want to have to call through a switchboard. But if that's the only way to actually get to speak to people, I will.
That's when you really pull out the Maureen tactics.
Oh, I mean, and as Maureen is saying, is like, 9 times out of 10, if you ask for the person that you want to talk to and say what your name is, then you're going to get put through. And in my telemarketing days, that was exactly the same. I was doing, I was calling into HR managers and managers in Iceland for roles that I found on, European job sites, and say, I can see you're looking for this. That's what my company does. So it's no different today. It's just like it's normal to do it in sales. It's just kind of been forgotten that that's how you used to do it in recruitment. And like I remember when I started way back when, we would send a fax to everybody the day before. Like then we bought a computer to send a. We had a call list of 100 companies we want to call, and we just sat the computer and a modem, and then we started auto-generating faxes so that we had an excuse for why we were calling the next day. And it worked with a lot of the gatekeepers. It's like, well, I sent him a fax yesterday.
Oh, in gosh, Germany, I just remember this pile of them being ignored.
Yes.
The later, as they were phasing out, as they would just sit there and the receptionist would just tip it in the bin.
It would still work in Germany because it's one of those countries where...
Wow.
So I had a lot of run-ins with different offices in Germany when I actually, lived there and had to get paperwork done. You either send it the original signed or you send them a fax.
Right.
A scan is not legally binding.
Still.
So you still have, and I'm thinking, I remember fax machines. That is completely unreadable after having been through that. So I don't, but that's what it is. So you would still have, like all companies in Germany would still have a fax, and it would be expected. So, which is fine for business.
I'm still laughing at Mike's comment down the side here.
So what does the fax say?
It just makes me laugh.
But Mark, what does the fax say then? Just like I'm going to be calling you tomorrow? Or?
Oh, no, I mean, this was in my business development days, and it was just like
he's writing, "Hi, Audra, I'm calling about a job tomorrow."
Yeah, exactly.
But you said they still have them in Germany. You don't
still have them. It's still something
you can
just if you're thinking, I want them to have some kind of information about what we do. If you're with an agency and trying to sell in, and you have that kind of one page that you end up sending out anyway, and sending that, it's like, look, not sure if you read it, probably didn't, but they have it. Yeah.
I was laughing with my sister yesterday about that because we're both that bit older, and I was going, so the machine has the capability to do that fax thing, but of course where it sits and where the phone line is behind my wardrobe, stuck away where you couldn't possibly get to it anyway. So it's like scan, email. So what about France? Because obviously there's the whole English-French thing here that I'm curious to know from all the other countries that you've worked in.
Obviously a bit.
I mean, Viadio, obviously, it would be silly not to use that, but how do you find the cultural differences with approaching the French?
So it's very similar to German, and it's because I don't speak French. I have the same issues as any other British-speaking or English-speaking person would have.
But they hate you slightly less.
No, well, I'm Danish. We're one of those countries that I think one of the least hated countries in the world. They all say we're the happiest people in the world.
Right. I just told you that.
Yes, she did. She said it's the happiest people. And I was going, why? The weather? It can't be the weather.
No, well, it's not actually reading. It's not based on any empirical questionnaire or anything. They take a lot of economic numbers and make it up because we have free healthcare, the working hours, we must be the happiest people in the world. They haven't actually asked any Danish person because most Danish people are like, what?
Yeah, don't ask me in winter.
No.
We've had an hour of sunlight.
Yeah.
So, but I can get away. People like, okay, they look at the name and they think I'm Swedish. And then Denmark, nothing is really hated from that. So I can get away with a lot more things. And with the French candidates, it's like, I don't get the kind of same response that I would normally want to have in any other country. So, have to work a bit harder, but same thing, you calling into them, leaving a voicemail, we want people who speak relatively good English anyway, and they would normally screen themselves out and saying, I get responses saying, my English isn't strong enough for me to have this interview in English. Can we have it in French? And I can say, no, and we would need somebody who speaks fluent English for what the job is anyway, so it wouldn't make sense for us to talk. But there's some countries where I've done Eastern Europe, I've done Russia, and that can be really difficult for places I haven't lived in or been in, it makes it a bit difficult. My wife is Polish Israeli, so I can get input from different countries from her.
Yeah.
And she's a recruiter as well. So
well, I was having an interesting conversation with a client this morning who's in the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
Of course, I assume you
people
know.
Think it's English.
Your husband's English. Yeah, isn't he? Your husband's English, isn't he, Audra? So you know the Channel Islands. So because they're so small and they have such issues with, you basically need to have been born there or you can't work there, and they can only let so many in a year and blah, blah, blah. And of course, they were saying they'd outsource some of their recruitment to somebody in South Africa. And of course, it was causing huge problems. And I'm just going, God, you know, my head, but understanding the size of Australia compared to the size of England. And then you're trying to get someone from South Africa to understand the size of the Channel Islands and Guernsey and all of the problems that go with it. And it's just like, oh my God, you can't. You do, like you said, I think it helps if you've at least visited. That's a start. But God, to have lived makes such a difference.
There's a few countries that I've had to do projects for that I didn't visit. So I did a project in India as well, which is split in between Bangalore and Pune, and we had to hire 12 people within 2 months and things like that. And that was.
Were you hiring locals or people?
There was locals. Right. Yeah, no, that was locals, and I learned a lot from that, and it was talking to our local team, but at the same time, I mean, they speak English, so that's not a problem. They respond really well to social media. That's why I would have found them anyway. They're really, really good at responding. They have no problem.
They're very good at saying yes.
No, and they're good at being available to talk as well, as long as it's not in working hours. And since most of them work European or American hours for what I was looking for, that meant at really random times for them. And at the same time, our interviews then was on Saturdays. So,
but how did you find it culturally? Because I find they have quite a lot of a yes culture, which is usually where there's been problems. So that's why I was saying they know how to say yes, which
they do. I mean,
like the Russians know how to say no.
I was digging into more technical details and getting more in depth earlier than I would have normally. So, they're much more used to getting to, let's get down to it. And me saying, this is what I'm looking for. Can you give me an example of you having worked with that technology or something similar? And they were quite like either they hadn't, and it was quite easy to kind of see either they did or they didn't. And I was, the whole kind of the mentality for the company I was recruiting for as well. They were kind of used to, we're going to invite 20 people for interviews face to face, and then 10 of them are going to show up. And we were like,
what?
I had an interview scheduler who sat in Dublin, and then me sitting in England is like, no, that doesn't.
No.
Why would you invite 20 if you don't expect them to? Oh no, but that's how it works. I agreed with my scheduler, and the recruiter in the US is like, no, let's show them, because my boss was like, oh, we only have 13 candidates scheduled for that's not going to be enough because half of them are not going to show up. I'm like, no, I can either scramble to find more candidates who I wouldn't have put in the first place, or we can just make sure they show up. So I stayed up and was texting people on Friday night, just making sure you have everything. This is the address. This is the people you're meeting. Let me know if anything changes. And the first one we had 13 scheduled. One canceled on me in the morning and had a good excuse, and the 12 other ones showed up. So it's more of they're used to a more kind of high touch culture of saying, you're here formally invited to an interview, and then they're okay with people not showing up because everything had kind of been done over email. And then just having
switched and gone and used what they use with the text messaging and the WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff.
It was about, yes, I talked to them on Skype, I talked to them on the phone, and just they're like, okay, I have their mobile number. I'll text them, and because I know that if you have a problem, you're more likely to just send me a quick text or things like that, or if you don't know where it is. And I would have that. I had somebody who ran late and called me and said, look, traffic is a nightmare. I'm gonna be there half an hour late. Rather than they wouldn't have been able to sit in the middle of Bangalore traffic and write me an email. Things like that. So technology is very different, and the use of technology is very different. So it's not just
text now anyway, and I'm here in London.
No, exactly.
Remind me I'm meant to be somewhere. I nearly forgot our lab. Like, it's Friday, 3:00, I nearly forgot our lab. All of a sudden, about 20 to 3, I went, oh my God.
Because last week, last week you said Lewis. Well, I did the same thing. I went to, we spent Christmas in Melbourne this year.
Nice.
But
as in Melbourne, England, or Melbourne, Australia?
No,
the
Melbourne, Australia,
the hot one.
and I loved that. Kind of saying, well, we spend Christmas, we spend New Year's, and then we didn't just want to do 2 weeks, but I also didn't want to miss too many weeks of work, so I ended up working from Melbourne the first week of January.
Nice.
None of my candidates knew where I was. They were like, I was talking to people in Paris, and they're like, oh yeah, you sit in London. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was 3 o'clock in the morning for me in Melbourne, but it didn't matter because for what we do, it doesn't really matter.
If you've got good tech, it doesn't.
And that's the thing. I mean, as long as your internet connection is good, the tech is you're gonna find tech that fits. I'm
going to insult some of the people on our call because I can see who's there. I swear to God, what is wrong with Tex and Wi-Fi? Every time I have to have a call with anybody, and like quite several of them are in Texas, I'm waiting for it. Come on, Jose, write a comment. But it's just every time. Like, I'm talking to my sister in Australia on her home Wi-Fi, no problems. But here we go. I knew there'd be a reaction. It's really weird. So I actually think I've had no problems in Asia and places like that. I like 4G hopping on the Wi-Fi.
It was one of our requirements as well when we were looking for accommodation there. It's like I have to have strong Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Like if I have to plug into an Ethernet cable, fine, but I have to be able to work because otherwise, that it's like everything we do is, we're recruiters. There's going to be about 200 windows open. Or in one tap, but there's going to be. I'm going to have 20 LinkedIn windows open, and I'm going to be back and forth and looking at CRM and.
We said the L word.
Yeah, and I love my Excel sheets.
I discovered something exciting this morning. You can turn off the damn autoplay of the videos on LinkedIn that they just.
Oh yeah, no, I did that.
It makes me nauseous as I'm rolling down, and suddenly it starts playing. I'm like, oh my God, stop. And
I did that on Facebook a long time ago, so I was like, there must be a setting like this in LinkedIn as well.
The setting that I find the most hilarious is the fact that you can turn off the ability to receive promoted emails. So I'm thinking, so everyone's going to turn that off. People are going to be paying for promoted emails. I'm wondering why they're not working.
Depends whether I'm sure there's some kind of small writing about what promotion email means.
I've turned them off. I haven't had any. Awesome. But I'm thinking, who's paying for them? And nobody's getting them because we've all gone,
I mean, LinkedIn. So I've been on LinkedIn since 2004. So, I mean,
I joined a little later, but
I have number 341,000 or something like that. So it's in the early days. And it was interesting. And it's well.
You're getting further and further off the screen, by the way. You're going to be off. No, not you. Mark,
he wants to make an appearance.
There he is. You're getting lower and lower as the blood goes on.
Oh, yeah.
So you were one of the...
Good. I mean, it's been good, but what it is now is it's a good research tool. But that's it. The
networking is all gone.
The network is fine for it. It's what it was supposed to be originally. Oh yeah,
the ability to see your updates, search your updates, have events.
It used to be, the groups were the groups were local. There was about, you had meetups in the groups as well. You would join groups that made sense.
Yeah.
Now most of them are private. There's not, they're trying to kind of compete with the private groups in Facebook to get those customers who use them for that, and that's fine. So. Well,
as a group manager, so they changed the group, and it was this scary thing as I sat there. So I run the HR UK group, and you literally have to be in the HR UK space, or you're not let in.
No, exactly.
Right. And so every single person's vetted. And when I had to make the decision, but I want it to be public because I want it to be found and to continue growing. Oh, but that means all the members can approve. And it was this. But I have to go through all the time and run down the discussions now and actually put people to requires moderation.
Yeah.
For those and then I have to keep doing it because eventually they drop off again, and you're like, oh, would you stop it? Because I'm trying to stop the ones that post stuff that's irrelevant, and so they've just lost the plot.
No, exactly. It's really gone, which is where coming back to Maureen kind of getting in. She's getting the second win. I saw that she's speaking at Susu in Australia next. Which is lovely. I mean, and I think Australia is probably more ready for it than any other country.
Yeah.
Because Australia is still what recruiters would call old school. It's still about meeting and networking, and you're not going to call somebody and expect them to take a job tomorrow. You're going to really work on finding those people, cultivating a network of people in that space, both with your customers and your candidates. So I'm sure they're going to be like, tell us something we don't know, because for them that's not going to be the big thing. But
not only that. So if I message any of my actual friends who I've known since like way back from school on LinkedIn, no reply.
No,
like literally. But they're my mates. They know who I am. They've got no reason not to reply. They don't use the network at all. They're on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're on Instagram. They might be on Twitter.
Which is for me as well. I was reluctant to join Twitter because I couldn't see what I needed it for. I had enough.
You need my ebook. Download my ebook. I'll tell you all about it.
So I joined very late because it was just like, okay, there's nothing in there for work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on there now, and for me, it's news. It's about finding out what's going on. Facebook for me that's my kind of personal network. That's gone more and more into what LinkedIn used to be. It's like, okay, this is a way to actually talk, especially now with Messenger and everything is mobile. If I have somebody that I just can't find a phone number for them, I can't find an email, but I can pop them into Messenger and see, are they on? Well, they're on Facebook, but are they on Messenger? If they're on Messenger, it's like, good. I know that if I write them a message, it's going to pop up straight to their phone.
Okay. Unless you've been blocked before. I've got a few clients that can't get them through. So on that, so Phil, who booked me for SOSU for Australia and New Zealand and all of these, all done on Messenger. The whole thing was done on Messenger. And then I laugh because I'm like, now, is it in my Twitter direct messages? Is it Messenger? Is it on WhatsApp? Is it? So I've got someone else booking me to speak via WhatsApp, someone else booking, and it's like, I lost the messages.
I had the same with Messenger. I didn't download it until like when Shally was talking about Messenger at SourceCon in Orlando, I was like, okay, that gives me a reason to actually, because I did not want, and the reason I didn't want it is I don't have any notifications turned on my phone.
Neither do I.
None. And every time you open Messenger, it asks you, are you sure you don't want it? Which is good, because I know that if we do write candidates on it, they're going to get it up as as a notification. For me, it's annoying, and it's why I switched everything off.
It kills your battery, doesn't it? So
the only thing that pops up are my texts from my wife and my family. That's going to pop up on my phone. Everything else is not. Because it's that you sit and you do something and you have to concentrate, and something pops up and you get a sound. I have all of those things switched off. The same with email notifications when you get an Outlook and everything like that. It's too easy just to like, oh, let me just look at that.
So there's a brilliant employer branding conference going on at the moment that Audra and I should be out, that we're not at. And Jason, so he's at Sidon, came up with this new term, which Alison Cruz has been going on about, the professional, which I just friggin' love. Which is, it's just so bad. It's cracking me up. I so have to steal it and use it. So that whole, my Facebook has become this professional network with my friends probably going, what the hell is she talking about blab for? What's a blab? Why is she going on about her new company?
I know, absolutely.
Stop it.
It's like a healthy mix.
I know that I've got clients connected there who've actually got all their lists split out. And I know, actually, Brian Cheney's a good one for that, splitting out, and different people get different. So I can't be bothered with all of that. Everyone gets something. But I, in some ways, I think it's quite cool, because if you do think about what you share publicly, you can really build up a nice brand. And the notes are quite cool, and the events.
Microsoft is using that as well. So then we're all, which is I used to be on Facebook maybe once a month, because this wasn't anything that I was interested in. I wasn't in a lot of groups that I couldn't just pop in and have a look at what's going on. Joining Microsoft, they were very much on, we need all of your help on social media, which means we all go through what's interesting from my point of view that I want to share. Because obviously with a big company, there's a lot of social media going on, a lot of marketing people. So now, like from when I joined 6 months ago, my Facebook is, there's at least 3 or 4 posts on there every day, which is most of the time is, is Microsoft things that goes on and saying, this is what we're doing, could be interesting. And that's all public, which, yes, there's probably a lot of my friends from high school and primary school like, what is, who cares who's blocked me or unfollowed, and then that's fine. But at the same time, it's like, look, if somebody, and we know that if I reach out to somebody and they think, let me just check his Facebook. What they're going to see is they're going to see me. They're going to see a couple of pictures of my family, but most of what they're going to see is my public posts about what Microsoft is doing in different areas.
Yeah.
And you know, we've seen that from a recruitment point of view as well. We just have that. People know what we do. Everybody knows what the company does.
Big brand with probably employer branding guidelines. Sorry, Audra. You know how much I love those. How do you keep it real?
From a personal point of view?
Yeah, so you're sharing stuff on your personal profile. So, yeah, I'm hoping you're sharing, like your boss did that great LinkedIn post. Yeah. Even though it's a LinkedIn post, it makes me cringe. But sorry.
Well, he's not on Twitter, which I
the team. Like it's a picture of here's our office, this is what it looks like, here's our team. I love that sort of stuff. Yeah. But they don't have an issue with that, or you just do it?
No,
anyway?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, we have vetted channels, which is PR approved. They're all collated. We're using a tool from called Sociable, where everybody can go in. There's a bit of competition in it. There's some, you know, making a game out of it. But at the same time, you can look at it like, for my audience, we have different kind of audience types. For my audience, what's interesting, you know, so I would be, you know, going in between. That could be enterprise sales and SMB, and then developers. It's like, I don't recruit developers, but I have, you know, part of my audience is developers and things like that. So if I think there's something interesting on the different Microsoft media channels that fits into that, that's the things I'm retweeting or posting on Facebook.
So I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go, Audra. Go. Honestly.
Just a quick one. So for Facebook, do you get, as a recruiter, a ton of requests from people that are just kind of random, you don't know who they are? Or how do you decide when to accept or when to not?
I don't actually. Like I haven't seen a lot of that coming through. It's not like LinkedIn.
I do all the time.
It could be, yeah. Well, it could also just be that, like, you know, I haven't been actively out and kind of promoting any personal things on Facebook.
Sorry, excuse me, including me, Jose, who you haven't accepted. Just saying. I went to tag him in a post this morning. Went, yes, it accepted my friend request. I'm so like, it was a perfect digital native, digital immigrant comment. Yep. I needed help with Snapchat, and he wasn't there. Oh, bless him. But yeah, no. So that's
I'm on Snapchat. Don't know what to do with it.
Seriously, but I don't know what to do with it. I actually think something happens when you get over 40 and you just can't use it. It's just like, and sorry, you're not over 40, but
a couple of years, almost.
Maybe over 38.
2 more.
But it's like my head just goes, I can't. And someone was wanting to have a Snapchat chat with me, and I'm like, I can't even. I don't even know how to turn on. Like,
no, and then following a few people, and you're like, you go through that, and you're like, oh, let me go back. Oh, hold on, I can't really. And what happened? And no, it's
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's what my mom think of Facebook. I'm sure.
Yeah. So my question was actually going to be, so I would much rather do developer recruitment because I find that so much easier because I kind of get it. I think one of the toughest though is what you're doing, the sales professional. So how? Sorry for anyone, I'm going to swear because they took a lot of bullshit. So how do you bullshit, Siv?
At the end of the day,
I'm getting
great question.
It's all Jackie.
Jackie does not talk any bull. She feeds me bull. Oh my God, that steak. Oh.
From what I've seen on the blabs that she'd done, yes. No, I mean, that's the thing. So everybody, like, because sales is such a big area, it's not like either you can do it or you don't. You have so many different ways of, so anything from, you know, telesales to really the big enterprise salespeople who can spend 2 years chasing one deal. And the people I generally look for are the people who are comfortable with having to spend 9 months or a year of chasing a $2-5 million deal. So yeah, as we say.
How do you work that out? Like,
I don't. I kiss a lot of frogs. You know, I talk to a lot of people.
Do you know, or do you have a?
No. I mean, the title, not even a title. So depending on the company, like I spoke to people, you know, person in the startup, and they were director of whatever, and it was him. That was it. And then you're in the big companies where, you know, some of them are called directors, and that might not mean anything either. Depends on what division they're in. It's a lot about keywords and finding out, you know, the more they share on their profile about what they've done, what kind of deals or what kind of customers they've worked with.
But what about when you're talking to them more than the sourcing?
Oh, it's about, you know, tell me about a deal. What my question normally is about what's the deal that you've done in your career that you're the most proud of? And that's either you can gauge what they're like from that. So, some of them will be all about the size. But what I really want to get in, it's about the size of the deal. This was a $10 million deal. And then kind of get into what was your role in that? Did it, some of them, I've had people who were proud of a deal that fell in their lap. All they had to do is re-sign it. There was no competitors really on it. It was purely on, this is a $10 million deal. And then to somebody who they lost the deal to a competitor, and they then, spending 2 years of getting it back, and how she would have done that. And really going into that. So, those fight, the ones that wants to fight are the ones you want to talk to.
Yeah, I really hope you can't hear the blab dogs.
I can't.
Yeah. They're playing, and the Labrador sounds like a walrus. So I'm sorry if you can hear him. It's really dog walk time. So we've had no questions. It's really.
I have a quick question about. You said so. Your Sourcer team is like 40 people.
Yeah.
What do you have an employment branding team, or what is it like there?
We do. I mean, so the 40 people is for Europe. So that's just my team in Europe, which is split in between people in Moscow, Romania, Poland, UK, in between our 3 offices in London. So that's just that kind of, Dublin with our engineering. Then we have similar teams in Asia, similar teams in Middle East and in the US. And employer branding is part of what we all do, but we also have specific global talent acquisition kind of employer branding pieces on that. So either working with marketing on how do we do this from an employer branding point of view in conjunction with marketing, or working on it specifically about, we don't want to just tweet jobs out all the time. Me looking for candidates. So a lot of what you'll see with the kind of Microsoft careers, it's about, there's a newsletter every week that kind of saying these are the hot jobs in Microsoft, or it's going to be a bit more what my boss did. It's like, this is our team, we are looking. Give a story behind it. Nobody cares that I know he wasn't too good and he did it again this week, or actually that was a job description. He had one a month ago, which is the one more of, this is what we actually do, because our team does do it slightly different.
So you don't have a totally separate team, though, that's like an employment branding team?
I'm sure we do. I just don't have anything to do with it.
Maybe it's in the U.S. or something.
Yeah, it would generally be U.S.
Got it. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Why they're so quiet down the side? It's really
Because I didn't get into a fight with Kasia.
maybe. We're basically out of time anyway. Just taking it all in. Listen to these really talkative people just listening. How awesome is that?
Wait, one last question. Yeah. This is not really about recruitment, but since you've lived in all these places, what is just your absolute favorite place if you had to retire and to stay?
I would come to the States, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah,
what part?
We have my brother-in-law lives in Los Angeles. Not that I would live there, but I have really good friends in the US. I've worked with. My brother-in-law lives there. If I had to retire and I didn't have to think about anything in terms of green cards and things like that, then we would find somewhere in the US.
Could I just say to Jackie and Jose, no, because you need to sort your Wi-Fi out. As an entire state, your Wi-Fi
it's too hot. It's really too hot.
Yeah, and your Wi-Fi sucks. Oh, I know. I'm there in July.
I like the beach.
Oh my God.
I like the beach, but I don't think Houston is for. I worked for an American company headquartered in Houston, and it was they were like, it's hot, but no, I think like West Coast, preferably California, South California, something like that.
San Diego.
At a stretch, Vegas, because you're still close enough.
No, it's too plastic.
So we love Vegas, though.
It's too plastic.
I could just about
do New York. Are you? I actually had a cool experience because I actually stayed with a friend of a friend out in the suburbs of. Yeah. I actually got the real experience of what it was like. I just still found it plastic. I just no. I could just about do New York. That's it.
Nah, New York. I mean, if I even after the States, I would move for the weather. I wouldn't move to New York because then you might as well stay here. You get the same temperature.
Yeah, it's been raining all week.
No, I'd say it was worse. I haven't got caught in the blizzard in January and sliding down the metro station.
Yeah.
That was epic. But anyway, I made it to San Francisco and got to the conference. So,
Jose
is going to bring me ice water when I'm in Dallas.
And Jackie wants me to go to Waco, so yeah.
Okay, no, she just come up meet you. She came to Dallas and took me out. Took me out. It was awesome.
I have a friend who lives in Dallas, and he wants to go to Austin, and he keeps saying as well.
Brilliant.
And he keeps saying, it's like, oh no, you should get to Texas if you're here. Definitely, that's where you want to live. And it's like
Pete's Dueling Piano Bar in Austin is my all-time favorite place ever. It was just ever the best night I have had in like 20 years. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
So that's where I would go. But yeah, work.
That's a hint to anybody on the call if you'd like a provide a green card.
Anyone needs some sales recruiters in Texas?
That's the thing. It's like with what we do. I don't meet people in person anyway, which is part of the kind of sourcing. So I have an old colleague who lives in Texas, and he used to support me when I was a recruiter, but he supported me for Europe. So he would be working from midnight until 8 in the morning and sourcing people in Sweden and in Germany. So, and that kind of, for me as well, that was like, okay, that means that, I went to Australia for Christmas, and I didn't worry about me not being able to do the job, because it's like, it's just about switching your timings around.
Yeah.
I could do this job from America without thinking about, yes, I would have to do it from midnight. But that's kind of what it is.
That's what I get to do. I deliver training all over, and I jump on a plane and go and deliver it, or thank goodness I have dog sitter. But it's so possible now. But again, the strange conversation I was having with my sister about you couldn't do this just such a short time period ago. 5 years ago, we couldn't do this. We couldn't do this 5 months ago, to be honest. Did they have blood then? But I don't know, 6. Maybe. When did we start blabbing? I can't remember. But it's how fast it's evolving. But then there's still stuff that's stuck, like the mobile job application. We're not there yet.
And I'm not sure we ever will be. As long as we still rely on CVs, we're not going to be there in any case. Until we get to a point where what we're looking for is specific things, so why don't we ask for specific things?
Yeah.
As long as us as recruiters, managers, HR, the first thing they ask is, do you have a CV? Ericsson had that very well as well, and it was, we were working against it there, and somebody put it into perspective. He's like, look, this is professional services. We sell these people to the end customer at most of the time 2,000-3,000 a day. They ask for their CV.
Yeah.
So we have clients in the Middle East that if you don't have these companies on the CV, they're not going to take our consultants. So that's where, and that's fine in specific cases, but sales, I don't really care who you work for. I care who your customers, what's your big deals? How long did it take you? Who did you have to work with? Are you an egoist? Can you only sell on your own, and you're going to go away and come back with a big deal in a year? Or are you the modern sales, which is, do you understand social selling? If you're not on LinkedIn, then I think you're going to have a problem, because your customers will want to look you up when they're meeting with you. Can you work with a team of technical people, value engineering? Can you look at, take financial peak? Can you talk to everybody? That's what's important. You'll never see that.
And listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And really finding out, it doesn't work anymore. You're not selling door to door. You're not selling used cars. And even with that, people know more about the car when they go in there than the salesman. And that's, especially in everything in IT sales as well, they're going to look you up. They're going to look your company up, and they're going to look at what Gartner says, what all of these different research companies says about which product is better. And that's what you need to be able to handle.
Yeah.
You won't see that on a 1 or 2 pager.
Yeah. Sorry. You have to have a good online personal brand.
I keep checking Twitter.
Especially for salespeople.
Yeah.
And recruiters.
No, and it's the same with everything. You get it, developers as well. You had them like, what do they do for social? It's like, well, you're going to have if you're working on something that you can share, it is open source, then, make sure you have a good GitHub in terms of that. Are you on Stack Overflow? Are you on Quora? Or
are you answering questions? Are you helping with code? Like, what are you doing?
They're all like, I haven't sent my CV as the first thing until somebody asked for it for many, many years. Because even if I did see a job, we've all seen the in-house ATSs, and it's a big black hole. Nobody's going to look at your application, no matter how good you are. So I haven't applied for a job in many years.
I think there's a re-education piece though. So you know that because you're in the space.
Yes.
But I don't think many job seekers do. Again, going back to conversation yesterday, it was quite an epic conversation. But, my sister doesn't have a degree. I don't have a degree. And she's going through this application.
Neither do I.
And she's got friggin' 20 years of experience. I mean, this woman is so talented. She's entrepreneurial. She run her own business she's so talented. And she gets to that stupid checkbox. Can't say yes, rejected. And I'm saying to her, Karen, I have taught you how to find people on LinkedIn and go and contact them. So why aren't you doing that? Because it's my sister, I can be that blunt. And she's like, oh. But most job seekers don't know how to circumvent those stupid ATS systems.
Which is, my job
frustrating.
as well.
At least you're sourcing outright and proactively doing it. But for those
and I talk to people and I say, I don't have to ask them whether they know what Microsoft does. And a lot of the people I talk to, they're like, I'm really happy where I am, but if I should change, it would be one of 3 companies. You're one of those 3. I'm like, good to know. Have you interviewed us before? No. Because for them, it's like, I don't know what roles you have. And unless you're actively seeking, you're not going to look into that.
Yeah.
And while sometimes I can see that they did 3 years ago and they got rejected because the role was closed and they would never looked at. So, which is good information to have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, we lost somebody really good because we never actually talked to them. But at the same time, like part of my job is to find out, what's the ideal next role for you? And that is my question, like word for word. And then find out, do I, if that's not what I'm working on at the moment, that's what it is. But let me find out where that would sit with us if we have it coming up in the next 9-12 months. And if we do, let me connect with the manager that's going to be looking for that role so you can have a conversation around it.
All right, and tweeting that.
And that's my job. And that's really where we want to get to. Because, we all know that, like, there's companies that we've all thought about that we would like to work for, just don't know what role was that, the different titles in different companies. I've always, if I've decided, okay, I'm looking for a change, I've looked what's online, and then I whatever I have to do to find whoever posted it or who I think is the manager for that role, and I've sent them an email and said, saw this role, I want to understand more about it. Can we have a talk?
But again, to do that.
Yes, I've told that to everybody who who I know who said, I'm looking for another role. What do I do? My wife has done the same for our friends. Let me look over your CV. You can take these things out. This is what you need to focus on and reach out to these people. Yeah. Look, have a conversation because what you're looking for at the end of the day is to have a conversation, whether that's as an interview, phone interview, or so if you can start off with, say, for me, it's gauging the professionalism and how quick they respond as well. If I send them an email or an in-mail and I don't get a response, I don't want to work for that person.
Yeah, so true. So true.
Right, and I've had a lot of that. We've had it where when we were changing countries, it was normally so we have a point of like sometimes we just get bored with the country we live in, and rather than saying, all right, let's look for another
8 countries, 12 years.
And my wife has lived in more countries, so when we met, we were already both well on the way. So it's been like, okay, so it's normally been one of us has found a job and the other one was still looking. And it's been really much that is saying the people who don't get back to me within, reasonable time, a couple of days. Yeah. Even no matter how nice that job might look, that's not where I want to work because you would kind of expect that. Yeah. It's either because they don't think you're any good or they think, they just don't get back to you.
Oh, that is if I really as well.
Oh, yeah. And if I really want the job, I'll chase them until they actually respond to me and then I'll have that conversation. But I've had interviews with companies that I admired from afar for a long time. And after that interview, I'm just like, there is absolutely no way I will ever work. And it's like, the company's probably nice, but their recruitment team is an absolute nightmare. And I've had a couple of those where it's, we've more, like, I've made mistakes of companies that I've joined and projects that I've done. But I have a couple as well where I think, thank God that I'm not desperate.
Yeah.
Because, if this was the only opportunity I had, it would have been hell.
Well, what's really, really cool.
I actually have to go, guys. I have a call right now.
All right.
No problem. Thanks,
Sorry.
Next week, though, is that we do have Kevin Gossman on, who's talking candidate experience. Yep. So you'll have to join in the side banter next week.
I'm excited about that. It's going to be great. Thank you so much, Mark. It's great.
Take care.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.